Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is visiting Guantanamo Bay Friday. She's there to survey the Trump administration's efforts to transform the naval station into a massive migrant detention center capable of holding up to 30,000 people. The plans are facing pushback from advocacy groups like the American Civil Liberties Union. CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata joins us now. Charlie, U.S. officials are making plans to send daily flights to Guantanamo Bay with migrant detainees, according to two people familiar with the deliberations. How feasible and costly is that?
In terms of feasibility, all things are feasible. We're talking about the U.S. military, and we ask those questions. They have the capacity to execute those orders. But yes, we confirm those plans are being drawn up for those daily flights. Having said that, the sheer numbers that President Trump is talking about, pretty ambitious. The first phase would see around 2,000 migrants in the first wave to Guantanamo Bay. Ultimately, he's talking about 30,000 transported to the naval base. Now, some have already started arriving. They've extended that base. And remember, there are already facilities there, right, including the high security base holding al-Qaeda suspects, the plotters of the 9/11 attacks. And a number of this first wave of migrants, called high threat migrants, allegedly members of a Venezuelan cartel, they're being held there. Now, in terms of costs, you've got to house and feed 30,000 people. That's not going to come cheap. There are no hard figures for that, and I'm not even sure they've budgeted for it. In terms of transporting those migrants, that we do have numbers on. One of those flights already left from Fort Bliss in Texas to Guantanamo Bay. They used a C-17 cargo plane. That's the standard workhorse for the U.S. military in terms of moving troops around. And we know that price tag comes at roughly $28,500 per hour of flight time. 80 people per flight, 30,000 migrants. You do the math.
$28K per hour. Wow, not a cheap ride. Immigration policy is typically led by Homeland Security, but Guantanamo is a naval station. So how involved is the Pentagon?
Yeah, well, deeply involved. We've been asking that question today, and we've been told repeatedly the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, is in the lead in terms of, the southwest border. But when it comes to Guantanamo Bay, that's kind of different, right? That's the Navy's patch. They already maintain around 8,500 sailors and Marines there, and those troops will be bolstered. In fact, those troops, the numbers have already been bolstered. At the same time, more members of DHS will be deployed to Guantanamo, too, because they have to expedite the process of moving these migrants along, because there are questions beyond the sheer logistics, right, of housing and feeding these migrants. It then gets into the murky territory of how long you hold the individuals, the legality, terms of resettlement. There was already a facility in place for migrants, those who were caught trying to get to the United States from like Cuba and Haiti, but that was tiny, just a fraction of what's needed now. So the short answer when it comes to the heavy lifting, in this case, literally the heavy lift, that comes down to the U.S. Navy, and they're just going to have to figure out in terms of personnel, because we are in the early hours and early days of this process, how that relationship with the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Navy, and to a larger degree, the Pentagon exists in that space.
Charlie D'Agata, thank you for joining.
Thank you.